Japanese, Spanish, and Arabic. These are the three languages that I've decided I want to learn to complete fluency. Right now, Japanese is my main focus, but eventually I want to be able to speak, understand, read, and write comfortably in all three. There are other languages that I find interesting, of course, and I might study some of them casually in the future, but those would just be extra. The only problem is that they're completely different from each other. They have different writing systems, different sounds, different grammar, and their own individual challenges. And learning even one language to a high level can take years. So is it actually realistic for me to become fluent in all three? Should I try learning them at the same time, or would that just slow me down and eventually make me burn out? In this video, I want to explain why I chose those languages and how I'm planning to approach such a long-term goal. Japanese is the language that I'm currently studying. So it's already gone beyond being something I simply want to learn one day. I've learned hiragana, katakana, and I'm currently working through kanji using an RTK-based Anki deck. One of the things I enjoy about Japanese is how different it feels from English. The writing system, grammar, and ways certain ideas are expressed can all feel unfamiliar. That obviously makes it difficult, but it also makes the process more interesting. It's a really satisfying feeling when something that used to look completely confusing initially finally starts to make sense. Japanese media is also part of my motivation, but the main reason I want to learn the language is that I want to explore Japan properly. I don't want to feel restricted to the main tourist areas just because they might be easier to navigate using English. I want to be able to travel outside the major cities, visit smaller towns and rural areas, and feel comfortable exploring wherever I want. I'd also like to communicate with the locals instead of constantly relying on translation apps or hoping that somebody speaks English. Obviously, learning Japanese will make every part of the traveling process effortless, but I think knowing the language would allow me to experience much more of the country and feel far more independent while I'm there. That's probably my biggest reason for taking Japanese seriously. Spanish interests me for a different reason. It's such a widely spoken language, and knowing it wouldn't only be useful for one particular country. It could allow me to communicate with people across Spain, large parts of Latin America, and Spanish-speaking communities in other parts of the world. The idea that one language could help me understand multiple people across many different countries is really motivating. It would also be useful for traveling, films, music, and online content. Compared with Japanese, the writing system would feel much more familiar because Spanish uses the same alphabet as English. That doesn't mean the language itself would be easy. I'd still need to learn the grammar, pronunciation, vocabulary, and how people actually speak in real conversations. But I think I'd be able to start reading and recognizing words much earlier than I could with Japanese. Spanish just feels extremely practical. There'd be so many opportunities to use it. That's the main reason it's one of the three languages I want to master. Arabic is slightly different because I've actually studied it before. I was learning Fusha, also known as Modern Standard Arabic. I reached a point where I could read and write the alphabet, and I could speak at a very basic level. But it's now been more than a year since I've studied it consistently, so I've forgotten quite a lot. I definitely need to revise the writing system, pronunciation, vocabulary, and grammar before moving forward properly. But the important thing is that I wouldn't be starting completely from zero. I already have a base, and I think some of what I've learned would begin to come back once I start practicing again. So returning to Arabic would feel less like beginning a completely new language and more like continuing something I left unfinished. Also, at some point, I need to decide whether I want to continue focusing mainly on Fusha or begin learning a spoken dialect as well. Fusha would be useful for formal content writing and news, whilst the dialect would be more useful for everyday conversation. That's something I'd have to think about later. But because I already have some experience with Arabic, it feels like a language I could genuinely return to and take much further. When I say I want to become fluent, I don't mean that I expect to know every word or never make mistakes. I don't even know every word in English, obviously. For me, fluency means being able to use the languages comfortably in real situations. I want to have conversations without planning every sentence in my head first. I want to understand native speakers at a normal speed, watch content without constantly relying on subtitles, and read and write comfortably. Basically, I don't want these languages to remain subjects that I only interact with through textbooks, flashcards, and language apps. I want them to become languages that I can actually use as part of my life. That's obviously a huge goal, and I don't think the best way to achieve it would be study all three equally from the beginning. Technically, I could spend some time on Japanese, Spanish, and Arabic every day, but at the beginner stage, every language requires a lot of attention. You're learning vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, and sometimes an entirely new writing system. If I only had 1 hour available and divided it equally, each language would get 20 minutes. That might be enough for casual exposure, but I don't think it would be enough to make the kind of progress that would keep me motivated. I don't think that confusing the languages would be my biggest problem, because they're so different. The bigger problem would be spreading my time and energy too thin. There would also be a risk of constantly switching to whichever language felt the most exciting at the moment. Starting a new language is fun because everything feels fresh, but if I switched every time the language I was studying became difficult, I might never stay focused long enough to reach a high level in any of them. So I think becoming fluent in all three is possible. I just don't think trying to learn all three seriously at the same time would be the best way for me to do it. For now, my priority is Japanese. I've already started learning and I want to build a strong foundation before adding another major language. That doesn't mean I need to become perfectly fluent in Japanese before I'm allowed to begin Spanish. There probably won't be one specific day when Japanese suddenly feels finished. I just want to reach a point where the basics feel stable. I want to have a decent vocabulary, understand a good amount of grammar, and be able to learn more through real Japanese content. Once Japanese becomes more about regular reading, listening, and speaking rather than constantly learning the absolute basics, I could begin taking Spanish more seriously. Japanese would still remain part of my life, but Spanish could become the language receiving most of my active beginner study. Arabic would probably come after that. That doesn't mean Arabic matters less to me. It just means that trying to begin 3 demanding language journeys at once would probably make all 3 harder than they need to be. So the rough order in my head is Japanese first, Spanish second, Arabic later. Of course, that plan could change. Circumstances, interests, and available study time might be different in the future. I'd also need to keep using each language as I moved on to the next one. My level in all 3 probably wouldn't stay perfectly equal, and that's fine. One language might become stronger because I'm using it more often, whilst another becomes slightly weaker during a period of time when I'm focused elsewhere. The important thing would be continuing to return to each language rather than expecting to learn it at once and remember everything forever. So can I become fluent in 3 completely different languages? I think I can, but it's going to be a goal measured in years rather than months. Japanese is the language directly in front of my eyes right now. Spanish and Arabic are still part of the long-term plan, but I don't need to rush into all 3 immediately. For now, the most important thing is to keep making progress with Japanese and gradually work towards the bigger goal. Thanks for watching, and hopefully one day I'll be able to look back at this video and see how far I've actually come.